What is going on, everybody? Hello and welcome back to another Ethan Shapiro YouTube video. As promised in my podcast last week, I am going to be doing a book review today of Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. So yeah, these reviews are just kind of meant to explain why I recommend these books and kind of give a little background. But the idea is, if I recommend a book, you should probably read it. So yeah, this is a book. This is widely revered as one of the best business books ever written. It's written in a very simple language. Anyone can read it and understand it. And it just kind of explains the fundamentals of how wealthy people think versus how middle class people think. That's the main distinction. It's not about working class versus upper class. It's the difference between someone who makes money and keeps it, essentially. So yeah, the idea of the book, Robert talks about how he had two very strong role models in his life. He had his rich dad, which was actually his friend's father, and then he had his poor dad, which he calls his father, his poor dad. And it was just about how his two fathers thought about money differently. So his rich dad would teach him about the difference between assets and liabilities and how to keep your money and how to have a good mindset for understanding money management. And obviously, I'm not going to run through the whole book. He goes in it in great detail. But there's this tension between the way his father thinks and the way his rich father thinks, which was someone who wasn't in his family, but who he respected very, very much. So yeah, one of the main points he makes in the book, and I definitely agree with it, is it's not about how much money you make in your job, but instead how you use the money that you do make. So if you make $80,000 a year or $60,000 a year, if you invest your money in assets, you can become extremely wealthy over time thanks to our good friend compound interest, which I rave about in probably all my book review videos because they're a lot investing focused. But yeah, it's not about making $1 million in a year. It's about understanding how money works, and that kind of transitions into the third main point I want to cover, is that rich people have money work for them. So I've talked about this before. You want to consider every dollar you earn as your employee. You want to put your dollars to work, be that through investing in real estate, investing in securities, or investing in yourself and putting knowledge into your brain so your knowledge can work for you. Every dollar you have has the potential to make you more money because of our friend compound interest, or because of ingenuity or creativity. That's so important to understand, that dollars are really not just for spending on things that give you no return. So now I'll give a brief overview of assets versus liabilities for people who don't understand it. It's very important to understand the distinction between an asset and a liability. So many people consider their home to be an asset to them because, of course, it's great. They paid a lot of money for it. They're paying for it. It's going up in value. But in reality, an asset is something that provides value to you. Now, sure, your house can provide value to you, but I really wouldn't consider a home an asset unless you're renting it out to someone. Because then instead of actually, for your home, yes, it's appreciating in value, but you are paying out of pocket for it. So let's give a better example. One might consider their car, they buy it for $20,000 an asset because they can use it to get them places. And yes, perhaps without your car, like for me, for example, I probably wouldn't be able to do my job without my car. It is an asset, but these real hard assets, like buying Apple stock or buying a rental property, those are the kind of assets you want to own because those assets are paying you back. When you put in $100, but let's keep it simple, your house is $100 and you're renting it out and someone else is paying the mortgage for you, not only do you have a house that's worth $100, but you're having someone pay the mortgage over time and it's appreciating, and you basically have no out-of-pocket expenses. Sure, there are repairs, there is property taxes, but overall, your net positive is increasing, and that's kind of the distinction. I don't know if I did a fantastic job. Of course, you should just read the book, because Robert has inspired, at this point, he's probably inspired millions of businessmen. Most people who are successful in business will go back and say, I read this book and it was very, very influential, very helpful. So yeah, basically one of the big differences between the rich and the poor, or the rich dad and the poor dad, is knowledge of how to use your money or lack thereof. So if you don't understand how money works, you could make $1 million a year and just blow it all away. So that's a bit of an introduction. Again, highly recommend this book, and I won't be the only one. You go online, there's probably dozens of videos just like this of people either reviewing and breaking down the book in detail or recommending it in general. So I do highly recommend Rich Dad Poor Dad. It is a book recommended to me by Noah Shields after I finished Margin of Safety. I was like, hey man, any other books? Like the book you gave me changed my life. Like, you have any more? And he's like, yeah, just read Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's just like a classic. Like, everyone in business has read it. Not everyone in business, but it's very, very popular. So I highly recommend Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's going to go way more in depth than I can in this video. It's kind of just off the cusp, just me talking. But yeah, thank you all for tuning in. I hope you watch my podcast today. And yeah, stay happy, stay healthy, everybody. Let's go.